Well, we jumped at the opportunity to bring down the Chief Constable of the second largest police force in the whole of England and Wales, serving nearly 3 million people. I speak of the West Midlands force, West Midlands Police, and also where they're actually having some impressive results as well. Earlier in the show, we played you the report by one of my LBC colleagues who went out with some of the officers who serve under the man from whom you're about to hear. Very successful operation cracking down on e-bikes. And how many times have we talked about the problems of those in cities such as London, Manchester, Leicester and other places? So they're doing something about it. Enough from me. Let's welcome then arguably the nation's second top cop, or certainly in the top half of the division, Chief Constable Craig Guilford, Chief Constable West Midlands Police. Good to have you on, Chief Constable.
Good morning.
And good to meet you. I've heard a lot about you, so good to meet you at last. And it's all positive, by the way, I assure you. Something I often ask when I speak with senior officers, whether I've had the opportunity to speak with Chief Constable GMP, Greater Manchester Police, a man I'm sure you know well, Sir Stephen Watson. I've spoken to quite regularly. I speak with commissioners. I go all the way back to Lord Stevens. That's how long I've been doing this. And I always ask, Chief Constable, what makes a good copper?
Probably 3 or 4 key things, really. Number 1, decent moral compass, the ability to make the right judgment. Number 2, not to be judgmental. We're not judge and jury. We gather the evidence, we produce it for the court. And I think number 3, the ability to communicate on people's level and to remember that sometimes people are ringing the police, and when we interact with them, it's the first time ever that they've had to do such a thing. And that's important that we get that right. Even if it's the 15th repetitive job that the cop's been to, it's the best service we can give. That's what it's all about, public service, and public service first.
Crime across the West Midlands dropped by around 6%. How have you, and more importantly, the men and women serving under you, how have they done it?
Well, it's easy to sit here, isn't it, as the chief and say, oh, it's absolutely fantastic and it's all about leadership. Leadership's part of it, but it's having good staff. Yes, setting a clear direction, but I try and keep things as simple as possible. So deliver a service that works for the public, get the phone answered in good time, be courteous, make a decision if you're going to go to a job or not, carry out a half-decent investigation when you've got there in good time, and then make sure you do what it says on the tin. We are the police. We are expected to keep people safe, to safeguard the vulnerable, to get people in the cells, and most importantly, to do what the public would expect us to do and to do the right thing in difficult circumstances.
Your officers kindly allowed one of my colleagues to go on an operation where you're tackling e-bikes, and that seems to have been very successful. A lot of bikes seized. Some of them, I read, modified to do speeds up to 60 miles an hour. That'll almost get you on the M1. I mean, that is truly petrifying if you're on a bicycle. But you've got problems with knife crime, Chief Constable.
That's right.
The worst in the country.
It was. It's certainly not now. And it was worse when I started there, and it was an absolute top priority of mine and the police and crime commissioners, the mayors and everybody that lives there. And it's important to put that into context to say we've had some brilliant reductions. However, the job is not done, and we've got to keep going at it and keep absolutely bearing down on it in every which way we can.
What did you and your colleagues and your senior officers do?
Some of the key things are around prevention. So try and make sure you've got a good team of people. We call it Operation Guardian. We have those in the right places, the hot spots, responding to the intelligence, doing some targeted stop searching. The sort of the average hit rate's about 1 in 3 for a positive outcome from those things. Either we find some drugs, we find a knife, we find the person's wanted, etc. We make early arrests. Second thing, keep some resources wherever possible. Money is very tight. We're 700 cops fewer than we had in 2010. But we're doing some great outcomes. And then the key thing really is to be offender focused. So when the job's happened, get behind the job quickly, get the people in custody that are doing most of these, produce a half-decent file, and make sure wherever possible you follow it through to a conclusion swiftly wherever possible.
Lastly, before we go to the calls, Brian, you're the first caller. I have a number, 12,489 men and women serving under you. Is that broadly what you expect?
Yeah, that's
You could
right.
do with more, I imagine, a city the size of Birmingham, the West Midlands.
Yeah, we've got about 8,150 cops. But as I said, we used to have many more.
All right, let's get to those calls. Brian, you're in Gloucester and you're through to the Chief Constable. Go ahead, Brian. Morning to you.
Good morning, Nick. Good morning, Chief Constable.
Morning.
Chief Constable, do you agree with the Home Secretary that police forces should be more transparent about the ethnicity of crime suspects?
We're always striving to be transparent in everything that we do, but we're governed by rules, and rules are often set by Parliament, they're set by the CPS, the courts. We have to be really careful that we do follow the rules and we don't just make rules up as we go along. So that particular debate at the moment, and I spoke to my colleague next door in Warwickshire, he's followed the rules, he's done the right thing. At the moment, the rules are under review. And they're under review by the CPS, the National Police Chiefs Council, and also there's a Law Commission review ongoing. And I think what we need to do is wait and see what comes out of there and then act accordingly and act properly. But in terms of the broadest theme of transparency, absolutely. We produce loads of data, and of course we want to give as much information as possible, but we have to operate within the bounds of the rules of the law.
Now, we're talking about this, and I don't need to remind you, Chief Constable, we have to tread carefully because there are active proceedings going before the court, but we're talking about this case involved in Nuneaton. You would have taken the same action as your colleague in Warwickshire did?
Yes, that's right.
What is the problem with providing more information?
I think the problem with providing more information is you've got to be so careful with the protocol that we've got and the guidance that we've got, which comes actually from a few years ago, sort of post-Leveson, post-Jimmy Savile, post some of the issues around the Cliff Richard inquiry. And we need to make sure that we follow the rules. And if we don't want to come on the wrong side of the argument or prejudice any live proceedings. And that is really key. Can't underline that enough.
Let's get Brian. Quick response from you, Brian, then I'll move on to the next caller.
Well, this is about risk management, surely. I mean, insurance companies deal with protected characteristics every day, and they use them to assess what sort of fee you should pay, what your risk is. Surely the police should be doing that.
I don't see, how the ethnicity, my background or whatever, pertains into an insurance parallel. Sorry, Brian, just a quick sentence of what the point you're trying to make there.
There are all sorts of characteristics. They do, actually. Your age, your ethnicity. Yes. Insurance companies take all sorts of things in.
I don't know quite that you can look at policing in the same way as insurance, Brian. Thank you for the point you made. They would say that a 45-year-old man was arrested from South East London, or a 65-year-old man or whatever. We always get that. Just lastly, Brian, thank you. John, coming to you in a moment. Just lastly, if you go back to what were called the summer riots, Chief Constable, last year.
Last year,
Yeah. Can I put to you that they were in some way fueled by a lack of knowledge and the totally false belief that the person involved, who I won't name, but you know of whom I speak, was an asylum seeker, which was totally untrue, and that then fueled the anger. So the argument I would make to you is, if we had put out that this particular individual was British-born, we might not have had a quarter of the trouble that we had.
Well, it's easier to be the hindsight police than the real police. I'll put that one forward first. But I understand the point completely.
Would you be more comfortable in a world where there is... I'm not asking you on this one, but...
No, I'm prepared to answer. Honestly, it's really direct, which is, I think it's important that we have an avenue as police chiefs to be able to prevent the spread of disinformation. Because you mentioned the riots, and certainly from my perspective, we didn't have the signs of disorder on the scale that some other areas of the country had last year. But one of our local protagonists was actually somebody that was spreading disinformation about a particular local mosque being targeted by some extreme right-wing individuals. And that was proved to be false at the end of the day, and it's important that once we know that, we're able to put that quickly into the public domain, because that would prevent 300 or 400 people coming out onto the street.
Let's go to your home patch. John's in Birmingham. It's a big city. The gentleman opposite knows you far better than I, but John, you're through to your Chief Constable, Craig Guilford. Go ahead.
Morning, Nick. Great show. Thank you very much. Chief Constable, appreciate the statistics are saying things are down, but does this actually really reflect what the people think on the street? I work in Birmingham city centre, and I know that people are frightened and scared to still walk through our city centre.
Give me some areas, John. This is Nick Ferrari speaking. Where would you say to the Chief Constable you don't feel safe at night?
Round about the new streets, Colmore areas. Yeah, I mean, it's the local area around there, Nick. Those kind of areas and the vicinities. Colmore Road, literally in the middle of the city centre. And I think it's having an adverse effect because people do not want to come into the city centre anymore. And you can see that from the number of shops that are shut, the number of restaurants, bars and everything. And it is people just don't feel safe in our city centre.
All right, I have to say here in London, sadly, we're losing some shops and bars, but let's come back to the Chief Constable.
Yeah, so Nick, that's where I work as well, and live relatively close by. I don't think everybody shares your view, but I do respect the view that you've given. We've got a load of operations.
Why would you say people don't share his view?
Because people I speak to across the partnership, people I speak to that are friends, family members, people that come and visit the city. Loads of visitors visit Birmingham. They come to Birmingham. It's a vibrant place. It's a good place for a night out. It's certainly a decent place to get a meal. And across all the cities in the country, we see shops shutting, and across our towns as well. That's not a symptom of a city that's unsafe. There are parts of the city that are more challenging than others. I've put more resources into the policing of the city. We've made a bid to government about some extra neighbourhood policing resources. We've got another 150 that are coming online. Quite pleased about that.
150 officers.
150 cops, yeah, and they'll be spread across neighbourhoods. And the most important thing is that we keep responding to local needs. So we're putting as many as we can into those areas, Nick, and it's important we keep doing so.
John, a quick response from you.
Yeah, can I just come back to the Chief Constable on that point about putting resourcing to local areas? In the area I actually live in, I was made aware by one of our local PCSOs that after 10 o'clock, the nearest response, if there was a burglary, a robbery, is some 8 miles away from where I live. Now I live in the West Brom area of Birmingham, and it's just really appalling and really shocking to think that there's 8 to 10 miles away. The nearest police officer should
honestly,
be distance.
you've clearly been told wrong. So West Brom is a big response policing base, big CID base, big neighbourhood base. We get to calls within about 10 or 11 minutes on a 999 call on average across 3.1 million people. And to be really candid, burglary's down by about 20%, burglary dwelling, robbery's down by about 19%. And we've doubled the number of people we've been arresting. In fact, to be honest, I've had to open another 3 custody suites. We had 4, we've now got 7. Last month, I think we did the most ever arrests we've ever done, about 5,500. Okay. So I'm afraid I don't concur with the information that you've been given.
John, if you want to leave your name and details with one of my colleagues, I'm sure the Chief Constable, as other forces have done in the past, will have someone who will get in touch and assure you if you have concerns. And if they are valid concerns, I don't know him yet, but in the past, every Chief Constable that's ever happened, they always do act on them. So, John, you maybe want to talk to one of my colleagues. Just lastly on the safety in the city, if I can.
Yeah.
If you had, and you might have, I have no idea, teenage sons or daughters, teenage nieces and nephews, would you be safe with them going out, spending a night in Brum?
Yeah, definitely, and they have done, and they're a bit older than that now, but absolutely. And when I go out, I see loads of young people.
Oh, I see, right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we are human, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if you go out, but in civvies, if you didn't go out dressed as
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was out last night in the city. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, enjoy. We have another John. John in Nuneaton. John, you're on the radio. Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Good morning, Chief Constable.
Morning.
Following this protest event that's going to take place in Nuneaton tomorrow, what will be the effect, do you think, on local policing in this area?
So, Nuneaton, you're just across the border in sunny Warwickshire from where we are, and we're supplying some resources, as we did last year during the summer riots, to different forces around the country. So you'll be getting some West Mids cops to help supplement. There'll always be an impact on local resources because we don't have a standing army, and forces like Warwickshire certainly don't have a big public order department like the West Midlands do. So we help each other out, you know, we speak to each other regularly, and whenever there's a request for additional resources, we do our level best to make sure we provide that.
How concerned are you, John, tomorrow?
Well, the last time there was a big meeting of this sort was Britain First, about 6 or 7 weeks ago. And to be honest, I think I went just to have a look what was going on. And the most aggressive groups were the opposition, not necessarily the people there protesting in the first place. So it's a bit of a flashpoint.
It is, and let's hope it goes off peacefully. Chief Constable, and be safe, John, on the subject, what is your view of some of these far-right organisations and other groups who turn up at protests where, in often cases, you have valid concerns from parents, grandparents, whatever it might be, the community, if I can use that word, and people who might live hundreds of miles away decide to rock up there? Chief Constable, they're troublemakers.
Well, I don't think they're troublemakers all the time now. I think quite often it's easy to label individuals. From a cop's perspective and from the chief's perspective, I can just say that we are anti-crime, we're not anti-protest. We respect the right to protest peacefully. People come from all over the country to the big cities. They very often come to London, as what will be happening this weekend. Yes. We've got one or two in Birmingham, and as the caller just said, we're supplying some resources to Nuneaton just across the border. So, no, I don't buy into the fact that, it's any kind of sort of rent-a-mob approach. There's always one or two difficult individuals. We're paid to deal with those.
If I turn up wearing a balaclava, am I going to get asked to take it off?
Depends in what circumstances, and if you're sort of at the protest and one of my cops, or if I was on the front end and was asking a few questions and you were, behaving in a way that was hostile and was going to be arresting you, then that will be coming off, obviously, because I'd need to confirm your identity, wouldn't I, to prosecute you.
But do you think people should be able to wear balaclavas on demos, Chief Constable?
Quite often, those types of questions are for lawmakers. So that would be a very political question that I would respectfully request that you replay back to somebody who makes the laws.
And your respectful request will be honoured. Let's go to another... we're going back to your patch. Dennis in Coventry. You're on the radio. Morning, Dennis.
Morning, Nick. Morning, Chief Constable.
Morning, Dennis.
Morning. I've got a little issue. It's regarding... I volunteer in a charity shop in Coventry.
Well done.
Recently, we had a bit of a problem where during the night or during the day, a rock was thrown through our window.
Right.
That caused us quite concern because it's a charity shop. That means that basically...
I've got to move you to your... I'm terribly sorry. If I could move you to your question, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
We reported it to my manager reported it to the police. We have the rocks still in our possession. Nobody's actually come back to us regarding that particular...
Okay, so when did this happen?
This happened a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, and you've made a number of calls to the police as yet unanswered. Is that what was...
That's correct, yeah.
Right, really same thing. I'd ask you to speak to one of my colleagues. Bear in mind, the Chief Constable, I very much doubt he's aware, and I'm not for a moment belittling what you and your colleagues have endured. You shouldn't have rocks thrown through shop windows, but I don't think the Chief Constable is aware of it. So, again, I sense this will be passed to one of his team. But let's put a sort of overall response. Chief Constable.
So that really disappoints me in what you've described, particularly if you've tried a couple of times to get an update. As I said, we are very good at answering the telephone and being able to give you an update, and we should have been quite open with you at the time. We don't tend to get much forensic evidence off a rock.
No.
However, that should have been explained properly, respectfully, etc. Usually what happens with incidents like those, the local neighbourhood team or a PCSO will be doing a follow-up. They'll obviously have a look and their eyes and their ears will be open. It may form part of a picture, in which case they'll be giving you a tinkle.
All right. And again, perhaps we can exchange. My colleague speaks to one of your team and we can pick up with Dennis and assure him. Again in your patch, Michael's in Wolverhampton. Michael, you're through to your Chief Constable. Good morning.
Morning, gents. Calling from the pride of the West Midlands.
Absolutely.
Guys, just a quick one. I mean, I'm talking on behalf of tradesmen in the West Midlands. It's something that we all talk about when we're on jobs and stuff, but we're paranoid every time we go to sleep that our vans are going to get broken into or vans are going to get nicked, or when we're on jobs, we get our tools pinched. And basically, I mean, my van was broken into last year, and we just on a pub car park, and we just basically want some sort of clarity of what can be done in the future to not only prevent it, but if we call the police, what can they do to help us?
Chief Constable, what can the police do? I mean, let's come at this a different way. I will come back to you, Michael. If I was running something and I had a number of chainsaws or power tools, isn't there some way that you can identify them so that if they are nicked, you can go to... I understand they're often sold at boot sales. You'll know far better than I, but there is some kind of marking system, isn't there, Chief Constable?
Yeah, there is, and I'm sure you'll know all about that, being a tradesman. I mean, the bottom line is, obviously, you take good, diligent steps yourself, deadlocks on the van, park the van in an area where there's some CCTV. If possible, don't have all the tools on the van, mark the tools, etc., because the second-hand market is one that we very often find things and we try and identify them, and we need some of those markings because obviously they're quite generic.
Sometimes they'll write the name Dave.
Yeah, well,
so you've got a chainsaw with Dave written on it.
Yeah, exactly. So a little bit more intelligent than that, obviously. But the broad principle is something that will identify the tools if they are left in the vehicle. And I know from a worker perspective, you have to leave them in the vehicle sometimes. Broadly, across the West Mids, vehicle crimes down down 15%. We've got 3 or 4 very big operations. We've arrested a lot of people for vehicle crime, in particularly theft from vehicles, but also the problem that we've had around car cannibalism. So these are relatively smaller cars where they'll have the bumper taken, or the light cluster or the mirror or something like that. Yeah. We have really tried hard to clamp down on that. So broadly, there's resource behind it from an investigative perspective. There's quite a few people awaiting their time at court. So prevention-wise, whatever you can do yourself and whatever we can do from an investigation-wise. If you see anybody acting suspiciously, it's 999 all the time. We answer a 999 call, Nick. We have about 70,000 a month. We answer it now on average 2 seconds.
2 seconds?
2 seconds.
You only
one
said
of the best
that 2 seconds ago.
That's right, and we'd have answered one. So, and if you ring on the 101, we normally answer that within about 20, 25 seconds. So it's nothing like the HMRC helpline.
What's that running at? Do we know?
I couldn't possibly comment. I just read a report on the way down on the train.
It takes considerably longer, does it? Michael, good luck, and I hope you manage to hold on to all your kit. You've talked, and understandably, you've lauded the work of your colleagues in areas such as crime, robbery and others, but shop theft or shoplifting, Chief Constable, I've got a note here, and you are not alone. This is, of course, a national epidemic or plague, but in your patch, a 24% lift?
Well, Nick, I think you might have got your maths wrong there.
Okay.
So to be, again, transparent and candid, it's up about 30% nationally.
30%?
And we're about the same, yeah.
Right.
And the reason for that, I think that there are a number of factors. So at the moment, we've sort of doubled the number of people we've been arresting for shoplifting, and we've doubled the number of people we're charging and sending to court. And what we're trying to do very much is we still put some investment into a very intensive programme with the very recidivist end of shoplifting, the people that do 20, 30 of those offences a day. And we do that. It's a funded programme with probation, with retailers, with a charity, and we try and work intensively to stop that mass recidivism for the top sort of 10 offenders. Broadly, though, because we are very successful at answering the telephone, our abandonment rate is next to nothing. You get through quickly, and people have got more confidence in reporting it across the West Mids. We've got rid of that fallacy of if it's under £200, you don't report it. That's just nonsense.
Was that ever the case, Chief Constable?
In some places, perhaps an urban myth, I would say, across the country.
Not a force you've ever been in charge of, Nottinghamshire or West Mids?
No, I just don't sign up to that. If there's a crime shoplifting, we need to get behind it. And quite often, these are small, single-person businesses, and the police need to be doing their bit to support them. It's not just about big businesses. So shoplifting is an indication of other crimes. Obviously, we need to investigate and we need to get a grip of it.
All right, let's get to some more calls. Tamara's in Shepherd's Bush, coming back to London. Tamara, you're through to Chief Constable of the West Mids. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning, Chief Constable.
Morning.
So, as you know, the crime in London is absolutely through the roof. I live in Shepherd's Bush, very close to Chiswick borders, and that so-called petty crime is causing massive impact to local shoppers because they're basically running now a closed-door policy, which probably affects their turnover and everything else. And I think a lot has to do with closing the police stations. What do you think, what lessons could much larger Metropolitan Police Force could learn from much smaller police force that is so successful?
Well, you probably are aware, Chief Constable, this comes a couple of days after the Metropolitan Police have said that they'll have to close 17 stations, 17 police counters, and one sort of counter other, total of 18 across the 30-plus boroughs. Is that something you'd ever do? And I know you don't, it's not quite as big a city, but would you ever sanction that?
I would if I had to, but that would be one of the last choices. So to put it into context, I think it's important to sort of look at the evidence, which is police stations are very important for reassurance. The flag, the front desk, they're certainly not required 24/7, but some are. So, for instance, in the West Midlands, in the middle of Birmingham, the police station, the front desk is open 24/7. In other cities and towns across the West Mids, the front desks are still there. I've never closed one. In fact, I think we've opened another 2. But they're not open 24/7. And I think what you've got to do is be a bit more creative in how you send some of the staff some work there when there aren't the footfall coming in. But these are difficult choices because of police funding. And, I've seen the media coverage of the Met, and I think they are tough choices to make. And
how come you've opened 2 and they're shutting 17?
Because they started off with a relatively large number, and perhaps it's an area whereby, at the end of the day, there are some other linked opportunities. So you don't have to have your own police station, a fire station, a council. Yeah, they are. If I just answer it, just to make it just a bit more obvious. Where there's an opportunity to share a building and to reduce the costs and keep the cash in the public purse for the benefit of the public, so you keep your desk open but you might share your desk with a couple of others or share a building, that's common sense. The police have not been great at that in the past.
OK. So you would only close counters if it was a last option, effectively, what you're saying?
Absolutely, yeah. But remember, and this is a really important point, and I say this to the cops and to the people very often that I give talks to, is that the police is a people service. I'm more interested in the number of people that I employ to deliver the service than the number of bricks the Police and Crime Commissioner owns.
All right. Coming to the last minute or so together, I was wondering if I could ask you if there's an update on the case involving Dolores Alexanders, as I'm saying that correctly. This is after a 12-year-old boy died after being hit by a black BMW car in Coventry of last year. He's wanted on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving. He's believed to be in Latvia, and his parents have met with the Latvian ambassador. Chief Constable, is there an advance on that story?
I can't say too much about that because it's a live case, other than there's some dedicated resource that carried out a very good investigation and supported that family. We've also been in consultation with the CPS, who have done a good job in liaising with their counterparts. Government have played a role in this, and I think we're just at the stage of awaiting a further update, and I'm very much hoping to see justice done in that tragic case. That's probably all I can say, Nick.
So I'll just say the one word, extradition. And you're going to stay quiet and just stare at me, I imagine.
That's probably right.
OK, well, I tried. Lorne Castle, the police officer down in Bournemouth who lost his job after arresting a 15-year-old boy. He sat on him and used some particularly disobliging language. He probably went over the top and he used the F word. He lost his job. Was that the right call?
I haven't listened to the circumstances of the case, but being the lead on professional standards, I do have a view on it, and I'm glad you've asked me the question. So the one thing to bear in mind is that none of the cops are above the law, and none of the cops are below the law. They are entitled to a fair hearing. And whoever hears that case, and it's usually either a chief on their own, or I think in his case it was a 3-person panel, so one chief and probably 2 independent members of the public that were appointed by the Police and Crime Commissioner to hear the evidence. They'll weigh the evidence and they'll listen to any aggravating factors, mitigating factors, any harm that they think has been caused, and then we have to trust them to look at the guidance and to make a reasonable decision within the bounds of reasonableness. And as long as those decisions are within the bounds of reasonableness, then I don't think we can have a criticism. But I, sitting here, have not seen every detail of the case.
But you lead in this area for police chiefs.
I do, absolutely.
Have you called it in, then, this particular case, or whatever the expression is?
No, there's no mandation to call it in, because the rules are there for everybody to apply, and it's important to just underline that no police officer is above the law, but no police officer either is below the law. So if that panel have made that decision, the officer can appeal. I don't know if there's a live appeal going on at the moment to a police arbitration tribunal.
My understanding, he's still considering that decision.
And so, consequently, I would say that it's probably best if I don't say too much more about that specific case, but I will be able to say broadly, you take the evidence into account. Obviously, people make mistakes. Sometimes officers, on occasion, may use force which is deemed to be excessive. You have to think about the situation, the position the officer's in, the level of harm, the reputation to the police service, and really the panel's job is to uphold high standards. But that doesn't mean that every police officer that gets found of gross misconduct is sacked.
All right. Finally, you've referenced London on a couple of occasions. There is supposedly a major day of demonstration with protests reportedly going deliberately to seek arrest, mass arrest policy. How has public order policing changed? I don't expect you to comment on London because you wouldn't expect Sir Mark Rowley to comment on Westminster. But how has public order policing changed?
Well, he might, because he used to be a cop there. And he would expect me to, and especially with having some experience of being a public order commander. But the way it's changed is policing changes as society changes, Nick. And very much movements come and movements go. And political instances change over time. But from our perspective, there's quite often a period of time whereby the courts and the police and government, the Home Office, take time to adjust to different movements. And decisions are made, and then obviously those decisions are implemented by the police service and they are tested by the courts. That's the system we live in the UK. So some of the key things that have changed are obviously sort of mass protest, selective protest.
It's more tricky, isn't it? With one of these, by the way, I'm holding up my mobile phone. With one of these, everyone is now a
citizen journalist. That's absolutely right. But also, did I think when I joined the cops 30 years ago that people would be supergluing themselves to tarmac and stuff like that, or putting pink spray on one of our jets, one of our transport aircraft? No, I didn't. But we're in the public sector, we're in the public service, we have to respond to that, to work with it, to keep ahead of the game, to engage with some of these protest groups, but also to change our tactics accordingly and to make sure that we try and stay a step ahead, that we try and anticipate, get good intelligence and try and focus our resource around the most extreme of the threats.
Been a pleasure meeting you. Can I send my best wishes to the men and women who serve under you in the great area of West Midlands?
You certainly can. They're doing a good job.
Chief Constable Craig Guilford, thanks for appearing on LBC, where the 9:30 news is next.
Sir Keir Starmer has urged the Israeli government to reconsider plans to take control of Gaza City. The move was approved by Benjamin Netanyahu's security cabinet overnight. Donald Trump says he is prepared to meet Vladimir Putin, even if the Russian leader refuses to speak to Volodymyr Zelensky. Moscow suggested the UAE as a possible location for the talks as soon as next week. People living near new pylons could get